Yeah, okay, okay. The thing there. Look at this. Over there. Well, it's good for something. Alright, home gamers. Let's see. Got a nice pile of junk here. Junky. Home Depot. Anyway, I'm going to do another project. May use all of it, some of it, none of it. However, my wife often says, you know, you just get all this stuff, but I got these ideas in my mind, you know, and they won't go away. So, I don't know. Got to do something. So anyway, I'm thinking of making another lamp, but I want like a desktop type lamp. Not a big lamp like that one, just a desktop lamp. So, steampunk genre. Let's see what we can do with this big pile of goo, and we'll let you know. Stay tuned. Alright, I basically have my design now. It's going to be fairly simple. I'm going to use these 3 gears as a base. We'll have to weld these here. And I believe this is steel. It still might be cast, but either way, if you preheat the cast, you can weld it with the flux core. And it's going to be kind of simple. Copper pipe up. And we'll tee it out. And we'll have 2 lights in the cross. And I'm going to use this gauge in the middle. And I got these LED lights. Hope you could see that. Yeah. These should be cool. They're smaller lights. And of course I'm going to have my valve switch for it. And I'm going to begin the whole thing by getting this fastened. This is some people call it a closet flange, floor flange, whatever, but I can't find any in brass, and it doesn't exactly fit on the whole pattern, but if I get 2 screws in there, it'll be fine. And yes, it's discolored, but I think I'm going to do the whole base, anything that's not copper pipe, with that. So the whole thing is copper. So that's the plan of attack here. And of course, you know, it begins with a good wire wheeling of everything, because these things have dust and grease and dirt on them. And look at this crap. Do you believe this crap? This is what the Home Depot does. With the barcode sticker right on the... Even if you're doing legitimate plumbing with this, I mean, I'm going to epoxy everything together here. But even if you're doing legitimate plumbing, that really messes with your solder flow. They just can't... Home Depot is horrible. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. So I got to get this stuff all cleaned up first, and then I have to prep this piece. I have to bore a hole in the back to get my lamp cord, you know, my power cord through there, and I have to put in and tap a couple of holes here so I can screw down this flange like so. And I might have to size that flange down a bit. And that's beginning stages. Okay, our machining has revealed that we are indeed dealing with cast iron, which is not a biggie. It's just that we have to take a different approach when we weld it. Right now I'm just tapping the last of 2 1/4-20 holes. When you tap this stuff too, it feels like sand in there. Always keep, backing out for your chips. But anyway, with that 2 1/4-20 screws, will hold that thing down. So yeah, it's cast iron. So I put my hole in for the lamp cord to go through. Now I do put a silicone tube through there because we don't want any chafing of our electrical wires. Alright, so let me get this thing cleaned off and we'll get set up to weld. Okay, we have the welder going, and what I want to do, most of the weld from the bottom, but I got to get these pieces nice and in line so they form a nice base. So I'll just do a tack, a nice strong tack here, and finish the weld on the bottom. But with cast iron, thing to do is give it a good preheat. Nothing crazy, about 350, 400 degrees where you're welding it. Makes for a better weld. Now another thing you want to do when welding cast iron is you want the preheat, and then you want a slow cool down, as slow as possible. So this here is a bucket of vermiculite, and I have the piece buried in there, and it takes quite a while to cool off. It's a pretty good insulating material, so that'll probably take an hour and a half before you could touch it, and that makes for a better bond with the cast iron. This is what I was taught by a welding expert. Okay. Alright, here's the base that's finished with the copper metallic paint. So we have a whole copper ensemble here. I would have preferred to put the flange on the other way and not have this writing and stuff on it, this embossing, but this is an MPT thread, so it wouldn't screw in from the other direction because it is tapered. But this is how we're going to build this thing up. I say anything that doesn't thread together gets epoxied. Like this will be epoxied in there. And then we'll have our switch, and then some pipe, and then a crusty. So that's where we're at. Okay, now if you get anything at all out of this video, I'd like you to at least pay attention to this part, because if you're going to do a project like this, this is going to be very helpful. This is a switch made out of a gate valve, simple gate valve, and you put on a handle like this, or any kind of handle you want. This one is copper, so it kind of matches my project here, right? And it's a wafer switch. You'll see them on desk lamps. They have that little plastic knob that it just turns one way, and it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, just like that. It only turns in one direction. But if you're doing a steampunk lamp project, man, this really sets it off. This is the best kind of switch you can have. Now, for a while, I was making these myself. I was making these myself, and I will say this: they're not very easy to make. It's not a simple to make thing. You have to take the gate valve apart. You have to grind down the threads so the stem freewheels instead of turning the gate up and down. You probably are not going to be able to see that, but you have to drill through the gate valve body, deburr the edges and so forth, and then wire the switch, and then epoxy the switch to the bottom of the housing body. and have it line up with the shaft, and hopefully the bond takes hold. And so I made several of these, few successfully, and a couple were I just gave up on them. I found a guy on eBay, and his vendor name will be in the description. It's Larry's Lights. He's a guy right here in New Jersey, and he has an electrical shop, and he's a licensed electrician, but he's also a fellow creator and steampunk aficionado, and he saw the need for these. He said he got the idea when he was at a craft show featuring steampunk art and projects and whatever, and he produces these in his shop. He has a good process to produce them, and he does a spectacular job. This one, you could see, is wired from both sides, because this is going to go here. This connects to the power cord down here, connects to the power cord, and this will feed the lamps. Or you can get them with the wires all on one side, depending on your wire configuration. He makes these in 1/2 inch, and he makes them in 3/4. So depending on size pipe you're using, he could accommodate it, and he sells the handles in all different colors and styles. You can order your handle to match a project. I've had the red and green cross handles that look pretty good. I got this copper one to go with this copper project. Now, he's about, I guess with the shipping, it's just about 25 bucks, at least shipping to me. Somebody might ask, well, that's $25 for a switch, but let me tell you something. You buy one of these gate valves, it's about $8 or $9 in a big box store, maybe a little bit cheaper at a plumbing supply place, but I don't know about it if you buy one. So you're into this thing for $8 or $9. The wafer switch, if you go to a light shop or you go online, that's going to cost you $3. And if you have to get it shipped to you, you throw another buck on top of it. And then you got to do damn work, which, if you're not really set up to do it, and I'm sure Larry has some kind of good setup, it can be a little frustrating to get this thing all back together, and you're switching it, and then this breaks off, or the stem comes loose because the adhesion wasn't good. Larry actually drills into the plastic switch, the rotary dial, and he uses, it looks like a white JB weld, because I actually took one of his apart one day, and they're very well made. So you're into it for at least half of the $25, maybe a little bit more, and you could just get it from him, and you have a superior, very nicely made switch for your project. It's up to you. If you want to do that, there's plenty of YouTube videos that describe the process in doing this. To me, I just assume have him do it, and I'll just put it together. It goes into, if you're selling this stuff, it goes into the cost of the job. I mean, some of these black Aryan type lamps that I make, say like this one here, okay, I mean, just the material, I have about $75 of material in there, not including the gears. And that's an $11 light bulb. It's a $6 lamp shroud. So you have material costs into these projects to begin with, and you factor that in. And people who buy steampunk art, they love it, and people who hate it won't give you 2 cents for it. So that's why if you go to a show or something like that, it has to be some kind of craft show that's attracts a more of that, a non-traditional type of customer. Now, I had a pair of black Aryan lamps that had 2 bulbs on them. If you go through my videos, you'll see one of the projects I did. and a woman, I was selling those for $250 a piece, or I'd do a pair of them for $425, and I only had one left, and she wanted these lamps for her husband's new studio. He was an architect, and he was into steampunk trains and stuff like that, and she thought these would be great for the end tables on the sides of the sofa in his new studio. So the moral of the story is the people who appreciate steampunk genre for their decor or their man cave or whatever, they'll pay the money for a nice project, okay? And people who, like colonial style or antiques or something like that, they wouldn't give you the right time of day. So don't be afraid if you do sell something to factor in the cost of your materials and ask a fair price for it. Besides the materials, what else do you have into it? There's obviously some skills and some time and everything else. So that's what I got to say about that. So our next step is to start getting this thing together, and I'll give you some wiring tips. All right, so this is a rough dry fit of how the lamp is going to be. It's a desk lamp, so I don't want it to be too high. And my bulbs will be hanging down to about this level here. Okay. So yeah, that's good for a desk lamp. It's it's about 10 inches from the valve stem. And I think because of where the bulbs are going to be, I was going to put my gauge up here, but I think either 1/3 of the way or 1/2 of the way, not made up my mind yet, is where I'm going to mount the gauge. Now, the reason why I do this, as you can see, these pieces aren't polished or nothing like that. The reason why I do this is because I take my wire and I estimate, I don't estimate, I basically run my wire to get the right lengths here, because if making these lamps, if I've learned anything, it's that you're not going to shove these wires up and get them where you want them to go. Like 2 wires have to come up here, 2 wires have to come up there to get to the lamp. And it's so much easier when you do it this way and just feed your pipe over the wires like so than it is to try to snake your wires up. Believe me, folks, if you're doing a steampunk pipe frame lamp, that's the way you want to do it. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. So I dry fit this so I can get my wire, and I'll snip all my wire lengths, and oh wow, I got to cut out 3 or 4 inches of wire at the end, and it's wasted. That's better than not having enough or trying to thread it through, which is a pain in the ass. So we're going to do that. This has to get wire wheeled and all of that stuff. Then we'll start putting this thing together. Okay, so I got things together. Epoxy is secured. I just have to put my sockets and lamps on here. You can see you have to just adapt these plumbing fittings so they fit. And inside my brass nut here gets the lamp collar. It's like a little 1/8 inch threaded pipe that these guys screw onto. So we're just about done. We're definitely in the home stretch. One of the things I just want to make note of at this time, remember I talked about metal lamp, electrical wires. Okay, I always take out my multimeter in the most sensitive setting, and I check for any continuity between any of my wires and any part of my metal project. Okay, I know, sorry for the shaky camera. So that's important. You may as well do it at this stage before you put the lights on and everything else, and certainly before you plug it in and apply power to it. So everything's looking good. There's no continuity between the wiring and any part of the lamp, which is what I want. Let's finish this up. Okay, home gamers, here we are. A completed project. Yeah, that's a neat little desk lamp. It throws a nice lot of light right in the front here. Yeah. And I like those LED lights. Anyway, fun project, as most of them are. There's our little steam gauge. So, if you have any questions, comments, please look below. We'll see you later.